This is Julia with iCadenza, and I'm here with Ken Kragen, who is the incredible manager behind the careers of artists such as Kenny Rogers, Trisha Yearwood, Lionel Richie, and so many other incredible artists. And I'm so eager to hear about your experiences and your advice.
Great. Well, it's nice to be here with you.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, fun.
Well, my first question for you is kind of naturally, how did you get into management? You have such a fascinating story.
Well, it's the most interesting part of it is I never intended to be a manager. Had no idea what a manager did. In fact, back when I had graduated from University of California at Berkeley and was going off to Harvard Business School, there was a group appearing in a local club that said they wanted me to be their executive secretary. And I said, I'm not going to Harvard to get a master's degree to be an executive secretary. If you want a manager, call me. And I had no idea they would, number one. And secondly, I didn't really know what a manager did. But when I got back to school, there was a long kind of humorous letter from the leader of the group saying, we'd like you to be our manager. And I said, that's fine, but you got to wait till I graduate. So I worked on their career even while I was in school. And then when I came out of school, instead of going to the typical Harvard Business School places, whether it was IBM or Procter and Gamble or BBD&O or any of the big corporations, I went off and managed a group, and it was got me in this business in a way. I'd already been a concert promoter in high school, so I had some background, but I had no clue what to do management-wise. And the lucky thing for me was that these guys were quite a bit older than me and very experienced, and they didn't agree on anything. So they would argue all the points of any decision, and they could never come to a decision. I'd listen, and then they'd sort of look at me and say, why don't we let Ken decide? And then I would make the decision, and I would learn in the process because I'd hear all sides of the issue. So that's how I got into it, and never looked back.
So now that you've actually managed careers of many artists and you've been doing this for so many years, how would you define management? What does a manager actually do?
Well, I'm asked that question constantly, and my standard answer, and it may sound a little flip, but it's really the truth, is everything but sing, at least with a musical artist, because the fact of the matter is, the way I view management is my job is to do whatever is necessary to advance a career, no matter what that is, at the particular moment. I mean, that has meant in my career that I've sold the souvenir programs because nobody showed up to do that, or I ran the spotlights because the spotlight operator got sick, or, I booked the travel. Whatever it was, I did it, and it was just a question of doing whatever is most important at that single moment in time to help the career of your artist. Now, in a much larger sense, it's finding the right booking agency and finding the right business manager and overseeing the activities of so many of the people that do the work for your artist, trying to get the record company excited about selling the record, coming up with a game plan to do that, scheduling artist tours, all kinds of things, It can be almost anything. And that's a great thing about management. The fun thing about management is it's never the same 2 minutes at a time, I mean, it's filled with crises. It's one of the things about management is, it's kind of a crises business. The funniest one I ever remember is Trisha Yearwood calling me from the road and saying, my bus caught on fire, but I stayed on the bus until the media got there because I knew you'd want me to do that. That was my whole time. Now what do I do? And I had to run around, make a lot of calls to get a new bus for her so she could continue the tour and all of that kind of stuff. But it's a different thing at every moment. And the great thing about management, and the thing that has always proven so terrific for me, is that it gives you access to do almost anything else you want to do in the industry. Years ago, one of my clients, Tom Smothers, the Smothers Brothers, said to me, if you control the access to the talent, you can pretty much name your own role. So I've been executive producer of all kinds of series. I've produced movies of the week. I've done films. I've produced concerts, and of course, all the big humanitarian events that I've done, We Are the World, Hands Across America, things like that. I've been able to use my access to talent, to key talent, to then create roles for myself. Not just titles. Some managers just do that. Some managers just get titles. I don't want titles. I want the job. I want to be able to do the fun work. I want to get in there and make the movie and edit it and work on the sound and do all that kind of stuff on it, So it's a long answer to what management is, but the fact of the matter is there are all kinds of managers. There are managers who are record producers. There are managers who are publicists. There are managers who are attorneys. Anybody can be a manager. There's no, you don't have any degree you have to get to be a manager. Anybody can manage you. And in fact, for the people looking at this, I think it's a good lesson that when people come to me and ask for management, as they do several times every day, I have somebody, maybe 3 or 4 a day now, and I'm not as prominent as I used to be, so you can imagine what it used to be. But when they come to me, I say, go find somebody who believes in you, who's, number one, honest. I always say the first thing you look for is you look for honesty. Total honesty from somebody. If you can't trust them, forget it. I don't care how good they are. But the second thing you look for is they have to believe in you. They totally believe in you. And if they're willing to walk through walls for you, willing to knock down those doors that keep shutting, or those people who say no, and they're really willing because they believe in your abilities, your talent, your stardom so much that they're willing to do that, then they're the right manager for you. They don't necessarily have to have experience or contacts. Those things would be great if you can find them. But if you can get somebody who cares about you and is going to really work for you, that's perhaps the most important thing.
Talking actually about those artists that call you each day, what do you recommend that an artist do that's seeking management? How can they best present themselves, and how can they best find a manager that would believe in them in that way?
Well, lately I've been calling this the Lady Gaga factor, because you got to be different to stand out in this massive industry with all of these people competing for the attention of people who buy records or turn on television or go on the internet and download your music. You've got to have something that's different. It can't just be good anymore. It just can't. I mean, good is important, but different is really important. There's got to be something unique about it. It's got to have some substance to it. It's got to be very special. It's got to have something that's unexpected. I think Lady Gaga, for example, has done all those kinds of things in the pop world now, and is a great example of somebody who found things about herself that she could exploit, and teamed up with a Lady Starlight who helped her with her look, her wardrobe, her feel, the whole look of it. But the key here is that wow factor. Unless you can create a wow factor, that's something that people go, oh my gosh, look at that, and remember you. And that's true of getting a manager. You can't get a manager if the manager looks at it and goes, well, how am I going to sell this? Why is anybody going to pay attention? She's good, she has great talent, but what's special about it? There are a lot of talented people out there. Why is this the one? Why does this person have star quality? What is it? And that's a question for any artist, of looking hard at what you are, what you're capable of, and what's special about you. And sometimes you can't tell yourself. You may have to ask other people, or you may have to go out and develop it. But you can't be afraid to try things that are different. You can't be afraid to be different than the crowd. If it's a question of just creating better, superior skills, having the most incredible vocal range, or being able to hit notes that anybody else can't, great. Work on that. If you think you can achieve that, that's something. But there are other things that go into it too. There's an overall personality. There's a presentation. There's a look. There's so many factors that go into somebody being a star. The thing that pops in my mind right away is that Kenny Rogers, when his career was starting to fade some in the late 80s into going into the 90s, had developed a keen interest in photography, and was a world-class, and still probably is, a world-class photographer. Really on a major level. He shot things that looked like Ansel Adams' work, or other very, very famous photographers. And I took that skill of Kenny's and created a whole new activity for him that we got a lot of press on, a lot of coverage. We did a show in a gallery in New York, and Time Magazine covered it. I found a way, it's, especially with an artist that's been around for a while, it's just finding new angles, new ways. What can they go? I had Kenny Rogers on Oprah, photographing Oprah. and it became a unique show. It was a way, we found another one of his skills that we could utilize to keep him in the public eye, to keep him out there. When I was handling Olivia Newton-John, she wanted to have a baby and she wanted to record a new album, and I said to her, why don't you record an album of lullabies, and you can go on shows afterwards, after you have the baby, and talk about how you put the baby to sleep with these, and now you're putting them out there so everybody can use them for their own young kids. And, I'll never forget, because she said, Ken Kragen, you're the only person I know who could make having a baby, a career event. But the truth is that you use what's there, what's real, what's natural, and you find a way to go back in there and make something. I mean, it's all in this. You can't sell anybody anything, nothing. You can't sell anything to anybody unless you get their attention. And you've got to do something that's unique or special. It's got to have some substance to it. It's got to have that core thing that's important. It's got to be unexpected.
Now, in your book, you have a fantastic book called Life is a Contact Sport. And there you talk about the importance of making various events that happen, really multifaceted events that happen in a very specific sequence and time period. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a thing I call the magic of threes. And it's probably the thing of all the stuff that I've discovered over the years that's had the greatest impact both on what I do and on other people's lives when I've taught it to them or they've read about it. The whole point is basically we're in a society in a time when you can't get anybody's attention with a single event. And the greatest example I use is Lionel Richie at the Olympics in 1984. 4 billion people saw him perform at the Olympics, and it didn't advance his career one bit. People say, how could that be? I mean, he was on national television. It was the closing ceremony of the Olympics, and 4 billion people watched. Well, there was nothing around it. You just simply can't make people take action or pay attention with a single event, a single thing. So what I teach is that it takes at least 3 impressions to get anybody's attention. And back to what I said before, you can't sell anybody anything if you don't get their attention. So you've got to get their attention first, and it takes the recipient, the person out there that you're trying to reach, 3 impressions. So in Lionel Richie's case, for example, 6 months later, here he is hosting the American Music Awards. He's on the cover of TV Guide. It's the night we record We Are the World. He wins 6 American Music Awards. Then he goes right to recording We Are the World. A couple of weeks later, he wins 3 Grammy Awards. Now, not as many people, nowhere near as many people, saw Lionel Richie in that period of time, 6 months after the Olympics. Not as many people saw it, but everybody saw multiples. And Lionel Richie's career took a jump from the place it was to a much higher place. And that was because of a concentration of events in a very, very tight period of time. So what I teach people is, if you've got some central thing you can build around, sometimes, by the way, the central thing is just a holiday or some kind of event that's already happening out there. It might not be your event. But if you can find a way to capitalize on it, be part of it, and then build around it, what you do is you take things that are happening now and you slow them down so they're going to happen at the same time of whatever you've decided that core thing is, that thing in the center. And then you take things that are going to happen months afterwards or weeks or whatever, and you speed them up so they also happen in that concentrated period of time. And you pull these things together in a way that everything happens in a very tight period of time, and you make multiple impressions. Now, if I'm targeting you, it's easy for me to target 3 impressions on you in a concentrated period of time. But let's say I'm reaching out to try and sell, my latest record. I'm trying to reach thousands of people. And you can't do that with simply 3 events because only a tiny fraction of them are going to see it. So you have to surround it with maybe, 5, 6, 7. I mean, if you're Disney Studios and you're launching a movie, you come at people from every direction possible to try and sell that particular film. And so the thing to remember is the recipient needs to receive 3 impressions in a concentrated period of time. To get 3 impressions out to a mass audience, you've got to put out a large number of different impressions from different directions and find ways to do that.